Hi guys, welcome to another book review. This book I actually found in the bargain bin, and this should go to show you that sometimes you should say yes to the books in the bargain bin. Take a browse through. You might find something pretty interesting, and that's actually what I did. I found something pretty interesting. It reminded me, well, not reminded me, it's a lot like the book I featured a while back now, Zelda. So where that talks about a real person, that real relationship, real timeline of events, but a lot of the conversations and stuff are made up, and for the most part they're guessing about what actually happened within the situation. So I'm going to be sharing with you today a book by Melanie Benjamin. It's called The Swans of Fifth Avenue. So this actually is about a group of New York socialites who basically have been partying in New York as socialites all from wealthy families, okay? Let's be real. Socialites back then were like old money. They didn't have anything to do. They didn't have a job, especially if you were a woman. You did not have a job, okay? Your job was to be seen at the right place at the right time to get the right man with enough money, and that's it. That was your job, okay? That was your job. So this features socialite Babe Paley, her sisters, the Cushing sisters. They were very prominent members of society. You know, their mom had pretty much geared them from birth to like grow up, be this trophy wife, and make sure your husband was happy. And that's it. That's your job. Have kids, make sure your husband's happy. Make sure your husband's happy before the children, okay? So it wasn't, don't care about your kids, but just make sure they know they're not as important as your husband. So that, it was very interesting to have these hints of like real history, real background on the families and the social relationships, that the social life, social scene of New York during this time period. So parts of it cover like the 30s, 40s, all the way up to the 70s, okay? And this does cover Truman Capote's relationship with this group of socialites. So if you don't know who Truman Capote is, he wrote the book In Cold Blood. So if you enjoy reading true crime novels, he pretty much kind of started that trend, okay, when he wrote In Cold Blood. And it's very interesting because this is a work of fiction, but the people are real. So to a certain extent, real things, some of these things really did occur. And so you can look it up on Wikipedia after you read this book or before reading this book to actually find out what happened. There is there's speculation in regards to certain aspects, right? Mainly this book is about Truman Capote and his friendship with Babe Paley, and just kind of how close they were, how much they really loved each other, and then kind of the shit hits the fan in their relationship to the point where she won't even really acknowledge his presence. She doesn't want to speak to him because she feels betrayed by something he did, okay? And just a hint about what he did, he's a writer. And obviously when you're friends with these very influential and prominent people, you learn stuff about their personal relationships, their marriages, their affairs, their, family. And so if you betray that confidence, a lot of them will murder you or cancel you by society standards. So it is in a way kind of reflective of even our current time, which right now when we cancel someone, it's through social media. This was actually when you cancel someone, you stop hanging out with them, you stop taking their calls, or for young people, you ghost them, okay? you're getting ghosted. And it's a very telling situation because you can tell once that relationship deteriorates for the both of them that they're pretty sad. They're very devastated that they lost their friend. But at the same time, they're both a little like, Capote didn't really seem very sorry he did it. But, however, he was trying to rewrite the success of In Cold Blood. And that obviously didn't necessarily always, it didn't necessarily happen for the man again. I think the most successful thing he had after that was Breakfast at Tiffany's, which, by the way, is a movie classic starring Audrey Hepburn, who actually wasn't supposed to be in that movie. That's not who Capote wanted to play Holly Golightly. He wanted Marilyn Monroe to play Holly Golightly, but no one bought Marilyn Monroe as that character. So that's how you end up with Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Just saying. And that's even kind of discussed in here as well. This is a very, it's like a classy version of Mean Girls, right? Except this isn't so much passive aggressive. It's pretty polite society. It's very gossipy. But at the end of the day, if you offend them, they'll still fuck you up. They'll cut you. So I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised by this book. The author does have a chapter at the very end, which I found incredibly good, about her being influenced by this time period in New York society. And she even researched the people in this book pretty extensively. So it's pretty impressive. Because, if you're going to write about real people, you should get major timelines of events that happened in their life correct. You need to get it correct. The other stuff, it's made up. Conversations are made up. That's fine, and she does disclose that, what's real and what's not real. She does list all the different books that she read too, to gather information regarding the people that she talks about in this book, but she also does talk about the influence they had on her life too, because this made her want to go to a big city, because she was growing up in the Midwest and she didn't really have a lot of exposure to, nightlife, fashion, that kind of stuff. And her seeing, stuff in Vanity Fair about Babe Paley, the socialite life, that, trophy wife look, and just that kind of nostalgia really aligned with her for some reason. And she appreciated that kind of very traditional glamour in a way. And she was fascinated also by the relationship between Babe Paley and Truman Capote, because that's the other thing you guys need to remember. Truman Capote was gay, and he had always kind of felt like an outcast of society, and then here you have him rubbing elbows with some pretty prominent women and their husbands, and so because of that, he ended up getting a lot of good exposure, making a lot of good connections. So it's just a very interesting dynamic, especially just with how society was at the time, where not many people were very accepting of people who were homosexual. And it does talk a lot about that in the book, about the husbands not feeling threatened by Truman or getting a little jealous of the wives paying him so much attention, but at the same time they're like, well, he's he's gay. I know he's not gonna like run off with my wife. So they would justify that. So it's a very good snapshot of kind of that thought process at that time. And I have to say that, you know, growing up, probably, I think everyone's kind of gotten mad at a friend by something they said or they did and kind of like, you know, told them to go fuck off. And this is definitely one of those books where you're probably going to relate to that. I mean, granted, it just depends on how bad that situation was, but you will definitely probably spend a little bit of time reflecting on those episodes in your own life. So again, this is why you should always dig through the bargain book bin, okay? Because sometimes you come out with something that's pretty cool. And I have to say, this one is pretty cool. If you want to know more about Truman Capote, you can Google him. It'll show you the stuff that he's written. There's a movie called Capote, okay? Came out a few years ago. I haven't watched it yet, but allegedly it was great. If you want to know about the women in this book, you could look up Babe Paley. There are books about her and her sisters, and some of the other prominent women in this book. So, again, please remember, the people are real. The major timeline of events is real. Most of these conversations are fake. But the author did do some serious research, which she should get major props for. I would definitely say give this book a read, because it's pretty complex, and I would definitely say it's a very well thought out. So if you're someone that likes to read things that kind of make you think a lot, or maybe even think about, you know, certain things that happened in your life, or you're just someone that likes to read about a bunch of bitchy gossip, this is for you, okay? Anyway, till next time.